I would like to welcome everybody to a FOXG1 Parent Support Team webinar series. Kate Lane here leads our FOXG1 Parent Support Team and has been hosting monthly Zooms with parents to talk about an array of different topics. And today we changed it from just being a Zoom conversation to a webinar because of the demand for everybody who's interested in joining this webinar. We have a FOXG1 dad, Josh Weitzman, who, as many of you know, is the father to Abraham Weitzman, Abey. And I had the pleasure of meeting Abey recently. And many people saw the blog post I wrote in response to our introduction to Abey. So Abey is a 20-year-old boy or young man who found out a year ago that he has FOXG1 syndrome. And Abey he is one of the most beautiful writers I have ever read from. He can communicate. And he can do this because Josh and his wife, Michelle, created a state-of-the-art or a very unique novel communication system called Us Abey. And they started working with him at a very young age. And Josh is going to tell this story. But Abey goes to Columbia University. He writes beautiful essays. He is an incredible student. And when he came over to our house and met Josie, he really turned our understanding or our outlook, our understanding of our children's cognitive ability upside down. You know, we're always told as FOXG1 parents that our children are cognitively, at least I was told that Josie is cognitively 1 year at best. And we're told that FOXG1 syndrome could cause many disabilities. There's physical, there's medical complexities, but there's cognitive disabilities. But now we're questioning, how does anybody really know that? How can anybody really measure that? And since meeting Abey, we're just not so sure because Abey is completely cognitive. And if given the right tools, our kids, Abey, can express everything that they're thinking. So we're just blown away by this remarkable young man. And we are so grateful to have this opportunity to meet you, Josh, to introduce you to our whole community, and to have Abey as part of our FOXG1 family. So Kate and I are here. Kate is talking to FOXG1 parents all the time in the parent support group. And and by the way, Kate's son, Orion, is 5 years old, and actually has a similar mutation type to Abey. So it's just so interesting. So I am going to turn it over to Josh, but before I do, I want to say we're not sure if we're going to be able to answer all the questions today. We will follow up with another webinar, but please write your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best. And if not, we will get to them either in a follow-up webinar or we'll record them and send them to everybody. So welcome, Josh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be here. I've never done this before. I hope it goes well. So I'm Josh. I'm Abey's dad. I'm going to share my screen here so you can see. This is a picture of our family. I'm a professional Broadway stagehand. I run a union crew on an electrics department on a Broadway theater. And my wife, Michelle Norris, is a licensed professional engineer here in New York City, where she specializes in preservation work on old buildings. And this is an old picture, but we have, just to give you a sense of everything, we have a daughter, Melissa. And here, actually, I can change pictures. We have a daughter, Melissa, who's a graduate student right now. She's studying public policy at Baruch College here in the city. And you can see the guy with the long hair is our youngest, Izzy, who's starting his freshman year of college. And there, not looking at the camera, is Abey, who's our middle one. He's 20 years old, and he's starting his junior year at Columbia University. where, by the way, he has a 3.6 GPA. I'm allowed to say that because I'm his dad. Here's some pictures of him when he was younger. I think this was about high school. Here's a picture of him in middle school. I wanted to, here's a picture of him as a really young person, and here he is having an EEG in the hospital as a baby. I wanted to tell you of some of his medical history, just so that I know most people listening have their own kid with FOXG1, and you might want to notice some similarities or differences with your kid with Abey. So I thought I would just quickly go over his medical history so you're able to do that. So he was born, he was immediately, within a few months, we saw that he had microcephaly. An MRI revealed that he has a partial agenesis of the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is sort of it's a kind of a crescent-shaped lobe between the left and right sections of the brain, and about 20% of his is missing. Just didn't develop in utero. He has epilepsy, okay? He has two different kinds of seizures. He has myoclonic jerks that look like this. They look like just a quick shudder. And he has a few of them, maybe 4 mornings a week. He'll have a few of them in a row, and they don't mean anything. They're not serious. He also has breakthrough seizures. Occasionally, those are partial complex seizures with secondary generalizations. And those are serious sort of neurological emergencies. When they happen, we always have diastat with us for them. And he has not had a breakthrough seizure in about 2 years, and they kind of, they're pretty well controlled with medicine. He was diagnosed with failure to thrive. He had a G-tube installed, which was made a huge difference to him in terms of getting nutrition into him. He also had a Nissen fundoplication, which was an operation that tightened up the upper valve of his stomach. Prior to that, even with the G-tube, he would barf up a lot of the food that he was feeding. And the Nissen, the fundoplication, between that and the G-tube, I think his GI considers him a huge success, that he's able to keep food down, and he's been growing, like the way he's supposed to. Let's see here. He's had a strabismus correction surgically. He's had his tonsils removed surgically. He's attempted the ketogenic diet for seizure control, but that wasn't successful. He's got a dyssynergous bladder and urinary retention. And then just about a year ago was diagnosed with FOXG1. So that's his sort of quick medical history. It may be similar to your FOXG1, and there may be differences. Here he is with his first aid, Amanda.
Josh, can you remind us which category mutation type that Abey has?
Yes, I have that on my sheet, but I can go out of order. Oh, it's right here. So I have it here to post in the chat.
Okay.
I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to hit chat, and I'm going to put it here, Control V. This is directly from his genetic study. So he has the what is it, the 460?
460
460 duplication, right? And you can see the sequence below there. You guys know more about this than I do. One of the things we do in our family is Michelle and I kind of split up the various things to do. Right. So we don't duplicate our efforts, and so that we can kind of accomplish more. She has always been the one who takes care of the medical kind of things, and I do other stuff. So I don't know what any of this means, to be honest, but I know that probably those of you watching do. Right. And I just put it in the chat.
Thank you.
Sure. That's all good.
Josh, I can Abey's is a frame shift variant for parents listening, and it's called 460 dupe G, and it happens to be actually one of the most common in the group.
Which Orion has as well. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Mm-hmm. Sure. So where was I? So yeah. So Abey goes to school. He went to pre-K. He went to a kindergarten that we weren't really happy about, but the kindergarten wouldn't. The school we wanted him to go to, which was for students with severe medical issues, but not cognitive issues, wouldn't even see him because their kindergarten, his pre-K teacher was like, well, we don't know what he knows. We ended up hiring our own psychologist who prepared a report. And once the school saw that our psychologist felt that he did not have a cognitive delay, they were interested in him. And he went there from first grade through 8th grade. Here's a picture of him in his, they have a wheelchair basketball team. And this is Abey here. He's the one not looking at the camera. He never looks at the camera. That's just beyond what he can do. But he had a great experience there. Here he is getting an award from, that's his coach. And it was a great match for him. He went on to New York City public school for high school. He went to Bard, Queens, high school, BSEC, Bard High School, Early College, Queens. It's a partnership with Bard College, and it is an early high school, and it was a great experience for him. I have to tell you, I've never been more scared than sending Abey off to public school for high school. When I was a kid, high school was kind of a rough place, and I was terrified for him, and he is adamant that he wanted to go. He was done with Viscardi. He wanted to go to regular public school. And he ended up thriving there. Here he is. He was actually the commencement speaker for his graduation, which is kind of amazing because he doesn't speak. Here he is getting an award at graduation, and that's the principal there, and that's his brother who's helping put the award on. And Abey wrote the commencement speech, and his brother Izzy read it for everybody. And it was pretty cool. He went to the prom. Here he is. The prom, this was during the pandemic. The prom was on the Circle Line, which is a boat ride in the harbor here in New York because the school wasn't allowed to have a prom indoors. And here he is on his way there with his 2 aides. We sent 2 people because it was on a boat. We wanted somebody who could carry Abey up the gangplank and then someone else who could carry the wheelchair up the gangplank. So they all had a great time, and Abey loved it. Here he is in our van on his way there. And he's now, like I said, a college student. This is us with the van all packed up with his stuff to take to Columbia University. He has a dorm room there. The school has been great at accommodating him. I'm gonna put, let's see, I'm gonna put in the chat now his CV for anybody who's interested. And let's see, I put it here, I did Control V. This is an online CV that you can look at that has his awards and his published writing and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to put now in the chat 3 essays that he wrote that were published that I really like. And some of them have been republished, and this one in the middle, Just Kept Swimming, won the American Voices Award, which was part of the Scholastic Award, and he went up on stage at Carnegie Hall and got his award and everything, and it was pretty cool. And the last thing I'm going to put in the chat is an article that he wrote for Chalkbeat. Chalkbeat is a magazine or a newspaper about New York City public schools, and this was about his efforts to getting into New York City public school as a high school. Is the same kind of thing that a lot of people do when they try to get into college. You have to apply, and it's complicated. And this is an article he wrote about how he managed that while he was in a wheelchair. And one of the other things Abey does is he's an advocate for the disabled community. That's something he's always enjoyed, and he takes seriously. This is a picture of him on a panel, and this woman here in the red coat is the Deputy Chancellor for Special Ed for New York City. And she's a big fan of Abey's. And here he is. You can see he's using his rig, and that's how he was able to participate. And so I thought I would move on now to talk about his communication devices. I know that I think that's what most of you are here to hear about.
Yeah,
So
and you
I gotta
know,
go
why don't we launch it with a question we have here from Soledad.
Sure.
Do you remember the day you realized Abey was able to understand more than you imagined? Like at what?
Yes. I skipped over that, but it's in my notes. So we knew Abey could understand us. And here's how we knew. He laughed appropriately at a joke. Like he'd be sitting, you know, in his chair, and you tend to ignore him.
Wow.
And somebody would say something funny and he would burst out laughing. And there's no way he would have done that on cue appropriately unless he could hear us and understand us. So we always knew that he knew what was going on. And the key to it was he laughed like anybody would laugh when someone said something stupid or funny or whatever.
That's so
And that
interesting.
was when he was
Yeah.
he was pretty young. He was 2-3 years old. You know, we knew he knew what was going on at that point, and that kind of inspired us to get moving, to give him more ways to express himself. I hope that answered that question.
Absolutely. And without veering off too much, I know that in one of Abey's articles, he writes about the difference of his laughter, that there's purposeful laughter and then there's uncontrolled laughter. And so this is going to ring very interesting for FOXG1 parents because sometimes our children laugh uncontrollably, which Abey explains in this essay.
Yeah.
And
So
is seizure, is this meaningful? So Abey can explain it to all of us.
exactly. So he has his neurologist always called it a pseudo-bulbar affect, where sometimes it's triggered by something funny and he starts laughing, but his neurology catches up with him and he can't stop laughing. So there is that, and sometimes he's laughing, and it takes all day. He might be laughing for 3 or 4 hours, pretty much on and off the whole time, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we're eating dinner and somebody says something funny, and he laughs, and it's completely appropriate, and that's how we knew he understood us.
That's great.
So when we wanted, I'm going to talk now about starting his communication system, and so what Michelle and I. One of the things we've always tried to do is to focus on what he could do. We looked at what can Abey do? What is he do? We know what are the kinds of things that he can do. And I'm going to show you a picture that's on our refrigerator usually. This is Abey as a young toddler. And one of the things he could always do is if you held him, we had to hold him. He can't balance, he can't do this by himself, but just the way you teach any toddler to walk, he would kind of straddle you between your legs. And you could hold his hands up over his head and he would take a few little steps kind of back and forth. And so we knew, even when, like any toddler at an age appropriate time, Abey couldn't sit up. He couldn't stand on his own. He couldn't walk without assistance, but he could, with assistance, stand and take a few steps. The other thing he loved, I couldn't find a picture of him. This, you see, I hope everybody can see this thing here that I'm circling with my mouse. This is an exerciser. It's a regular thing that you buy at like a toy store.
Oh, you're not sharing.
Oh, I'm not? Oh, wait, you're right. I'm sorry. Hold on. I screwed it up. Here. Now you can see it, right? This.
Yeah.
So this is an exerciser. This is Abey sitting with one of his friends, and this is our youngest, Izzy, in the exerciser. But Abey loved this thing, and he spent hours and hours in it, and it was a way for him to participate without somebody holding it. It kind of was a way towards independence for him a little bit. And at the same time, it worked on his weight bearing and his ability to stand upright and his ability to take little steps. In this thing, you can kind of step around. So you go in a circle and play with the different kind of toys there. But he got tired of the toys eventually, but this was almost like, it was a good way for him to participate in what the family was doing in a sort of independent way. And he used this thing for years. And it also inspired Michelle and all of us to see that, oh, it's our phone ring, to see that he can stand, he can walk a little bit with assistance. Here he is standing with Amanda. You can see he's got a little road rash on his face because one of the things that happens is he kind of would flip over, fall over a lot. But he could stand and walk with assistance. Here he is at a bowling alley. Our bowling alley near us has these sort of ramps that you can kind of help a young person bowl who isn't ready to hold up a ball. And he loved that. He could stand and walk up to the ball and hand over hand. He can't use his hands, but hand over hand, he could push the ball forward. Here he is in the Bronco, which was a kind of stander in our backyard. He liked to sort of play hand over hand croquet back there. So we could see that he could walk and he could with assistance and he could stand with assistance. And, I wanted to talk for a minute about the sort of milestones that he was missing, because therapists, doctors would always say, well, by now he should be doing this. By now he should be doing that. By now he should be doing that. It was a kind of choice that we made with Abey, that we were going to focus on what he could do and not worry about catching him up on milestones that weren't working out. We did our best, like peeing on the toilet, bladder control, toilet training. We spent hours with him on the toilet trying to get that to work. Eventually, Abey said to us, enough. When I pee, I'll pee in a diaper and you'll change me. I can't spend all day on the toilet working on this. I need to get on with what I can do. So that was an important part of how we developed his communication system, is we focused on what he was able to do and didn't worry about the things that, we tried until we didn't. And we didn't worry about the fact, like, he could never use his hands. He can't hold anything. He can do something hand over hand, but he was never going to do anything involving a keyboard. We could see that. He could see that. We decided, let's not worry about it. Let's focus on what he can do. And the thing he did best was walking and standing with assistance. He also did a lot of therapy. Here he is in cage therapy. I know in this picture he looks miserable, but he's really not. He thrived on therapy. He went there a lot. We had a great place near us, and he went there 5 days a week for an hour, and he did more at home, usually every day with Michelle. Corner sitting, corner standing, all different kinds of, they were sort of relentless in getting Abey therapy. Here he is at more therapy. Abey has a movement disorder. I forgot to say that in his medical history, but he has a movement disorder called chorea. It's this sort of hand washing that you see a lot of the kids have, but it's also, I'm not sharing, you can't see me, but anyway, he moves a lot. His head never stays still. He has a downward gaze with his eyes. He is always in motion, except for when he's asleep. And this movement disorder greatly affects his ability to balance, walk, stand, and he can't use his hands at all. So we tried to evaluate what Abey could do. And then we started thinking about, well, what can we do? So this is a picture of my shop. I'm an amateur woodworker. I have a little shop up in our house up in upstate. And we have I always like to say that we're a DIY family. Like, the kids kind of tease me about that, but we've always been the kind of people who try to do what we can for ourselves when we can. To give you an example, like when Abey's PT wanted him to have a stander, where the insurance company was, as can happen. The insurance company was difficult, and it was going to take months and months and cost a lot of money, even with insurance. And I was at our PT's office, and I was looking through a catalog, and I saw a picture of this stander that I'm sharing with you right now. And I asked her, is this the kind of idea? Is this what we're talking about? And she said, yeah, that would be great. And you look at it, it's just plywood. It's just like, what is the big deal? It's plywood and some hardware. And I went to the shop for a weekend, and I made this thing that I have a picture of. This is the only picture I could find of it. Abey used this thing for years. It's just plywood and hardware. I kind of stole their design. I think I improved on it. I think mine's a little better, but it wasn't a big deal. I made it over a weekend or two. But it got us to thinking that, we can do this. We have skills, we have things that we can do. We shouldn't be afraid. Not everything that a disabled person needs has to be on the shelf at the therapist's office, or has to come from some company. They don't know anything we don't know. I really do believe that there's no reason why we can't dive in and work on this. And Michelle and I have never been afraid to say, well, this doesn't exist. Someone will tell you, well, this doesn't exist, but why doesn't it exist? Like, why is this standard that I'm showing you a picture of, why does that cost $4,000? It's not even a sheet of plywood. Like, what is the big deal? And Michelle and I have tried to never let that stand in our way. So that takes us to the next thing. So how did we start on Tell Us Abey? It started, I came home from work one day, and I noticed Michelle had put little Velcro dots all around the house, the apartment. And she had folders, and in the folders were pictures from the internet that she'd printed out or cut out of magazines, and she'd kind of had them laminated, and she'd had Velcro put on them. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's happening? And she said, this is great. Watch this. and she took a picture of an avocado and she put it on the wall. And she took another picture of a banana and she put it a few feet away on the wall. And she got Abey up out of his chair and said, "Okay, what do you want for dinner?" And he walked towards the banana. And that's what we fed him. And she said, look at this. This is how we can figure out what he wants to do. This is, it's always been important to Michelle, kind of more than anyone I ever met, really, that everybody should get some say in what happens to them. He should be active, a participant in what he does, and not just always someone dragging him around and telling him what to do. That was something that really meant a lot to her, and she didn't stop until she could find a way to do that. And the Velcro tabs around the apartment and the pictures was exactly what was needed for that. So that got me thinking, well, I'm a technical person and I'm going to show you this picture. That got me thinking, what could I do that would make this work a little better, where we didn't have folders of papers all over the place, and something that would just be easier and more manageable. And so this is what we came up with. So you can see this is a picture of the very first Us Abey. It's really big. It's kind of a big thing. You can see by the size of this computer keyboard how big it is. This screen right here that I'm circling is a touch screen. So the keyboard is kind of unnecessary. You don't need a mouse or a keyboard to use this first version. And what you see here are 3 15-inch computer monitors and 3, I think this is the big red or the big whatever, the big buddy, I think it is, from AbleNet. And the idea is this green button matches this screen, and this yellow button matches this screen, and this red button matches this screen. And the idea is that the parent or the caregiver sits here with this touch screen and can put pictures up on these 3 TVs, just the way Michelle was doing with the Velcro around the house. And Abey would be a few feet away and would walk towards the one he wanted and push the big button and would see what would happen. So this was intended deliberately to be big and to be intuitive and to be something that didn't need any training. It seemed very intuitive to me and very obvious. You also could use it with one hand because this was a touch screen. You could just put your finger up there and drag things around on it. And Michelle had a way to kind of pressure Abey up on her right hip with her right hand and use her left hand to set this up on the screen and then grab him again and have him answer. And she could do it pretty quickly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demo this software for you. So what I'm showing you now is what would be on this screen over here that I'm circling, where the sort of caregiver is. But I have to launch it like this. So this is how it works with the splash screen. So the whole idea was kind of just what I explained to you. What do you want for dinner? You had different categories. Here's the food category. And with your finger, you could drag the avocado to this preview screen. It's kind of like a television studio where you have the preview screen that the director sets up. And then when you push it to we push send to Abey, it goes to the active screens that Abey can see. So Michelle would drag the avocado to this one window and drag the banana to this other window and then send to Abey and pull Abey back to midline and have him walk towards, in this case, if he would walk towards the avocado, he would push it and a little clap would go off and the other image would disappear. And then we would feed him avocados for dinner. It was really that simple. This is how it all started. The idea that he could, with somebody holding him at the waist, he could walk a few steps and decide what he was going to do. I had all different kind of categories. It was what he was going to read. Which toy do you want to play with? Do you want to mess around with Clifford or do you want to go into the Bronco? He would walk and say, I want to do Clifford today. It said, do you want to read a book or do you want to watch TV? And just how I'm doing, just as quickly as I'm doing it now, as effortlessly and as intuitively as I'm doing it is how the whole thing was designed to work. You could also, as we went on, I made some improvements. There's one way you could, I was worried that why do you have to always choose between 2 things? Why can't you choose between more than 2 things? So here was choose from a group of things. You could put the avocado, the banana, a slice of cake. you could have some fruit, or maybe eat some carrots. And then you would send to Abey. And now we use the third button. When Abey would push the center button, the two outer images would change. And he would push the center button and push it, and he could see, cycle through it until he got and said, oh, I want the banana, like that. This was incredibly successful. We used this for years until Abey was from when he was 2 to when he was about 5 or 6. And it was amazing. He told us exactly what he wanted to do, what he wanted to read, what color shirt he wanted to wear, what he wanted, music he wanted to listen to, what he wanted to eat, until he had his G-tube and everything. And it was just like having someone in the family, you know, one of the family who could talk to us. Yes, he needed an aid. He needed assistance to walk towards the thing. But let's see here. How do I get out of this? It was incredibly successful. It has a way to choose yes or no. So before we did all that other stuff, it had a way like, do you want to call Aunt Debbie? Or, and he could say, no. Oh, wait, I have to think. He could say, no, I don't really want that. And it's like, well, do you want to try Grandma? And he would say, yes, let's call Grandma. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to this other.
So one question, Josh, which I think parents might be thinking about is, did you try other communication devices that are, you know, accessible for our children? So have you tried?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about, you know, what didn't work and
Well, everything that the school's therapists had come up with involved hitting a button with your hand. Like, it just never occurred to them that I could walk and push a button with my chest. We had a Dynavox. They switched it. They made a Dynavox where you had 2 switches. That's what. Let me unshare for a second. That's what this thing was built for. I built a switch array that was like this. We had teachers in middle school who insisted, I want to use this Dynavox. Can you make a thing that has 2 buttons like this? It just, none of it was as good as what we had for Abey. None of it was as good as this.
Okay.
We had a Mercury for a while. We had lots of things that were like a toy that you could hit a button and it would do something, you know, like a thing would come down. I don't remember we tried eye gaze. That was hopeless. Like the Abey's movement disorder made that, you know, and now my camera's on. Abey's movements look like this. When he's like sitting in his chair, he looks like this. The eye gaze was never going to work. We had teachers try with like a hat with like a long pencil on it, that thinking he could poke a keyboard with that. He did not have the motor planning or the control for that at all. Right. So we tried lots of things, but this thing worked really well. I mean, I'm going to share my screen again.
Josh, am I understanding that using this early system took 2 caregivers at one time, one holding up Abey and another doing the computer, or could one person do both?
Abey was small enough. Let me unshare. Abey was small enough so that Michelle, so let's say I'm back here and the rig is here that you push. Abey could kind of Michelle would sit on a stool and could hold Abey up against her hip with her right hand and set up what she wanted to do with the left hand and hit send to Abey, and then grab him with both hands and go like this, and he would walk and answer the question. And then she would hold him with the right hand and set up the next question, and then grab him like this and walk with him like that. He started using this when he was 3 years old, and he was always small, so he was able to do that. Worked for her. It kind of brings up the point.
Did you train other caregivers to do that for him when he was young?
Yes.
Or just Michelle?
Yes. Everybody could do this. His aides did. Amanda. Even I could do this. I don't do the one he uses now, but this was so easy. And these buttons, I'm going to share again. These buttons are far enough apart that it's definitive. Like, he walks until he hits the green button and it goes off. And there's no question that, yes, I chose the green button. And he keeps hitting it. He would keep hitting at it until it went off if he missed it the first time. So it was really easy for anyone to use, and it only needed one person to operate it, one person to hold him and operate it at the same time. And sometimes when we were both home, we would do it together and we could kind of go faster. But the whole idea was one person could do this. Here's a picture of his brother showing the same thing that I just showed you, right? This is, do you want to read Elmer or do you want to read Horton? And you go out and you think, and you can see there's names here. I have it, the program, as he got older, I made it so that you could also add text to the bottom so he could see how things were spelled and how they were written. You push the red button and the red frame comes up around it. I wanted to talk a little bit about the ergonomics. You can see from this picture that there's a knob here, and it's not easy to do, but with 3 people, like, I mean, we had people help us. Someone would hold the rig and you could undo these 2 knobs and someone else could undo the 2 knobs over there and you could slide it up. And Abey kind of he grew slowly, but every year or 2, we would move it up an inch or 3/4 of an inch or whatever it was. The ergonomics of the positioning of the switches, the idea that this is something Abey has said to us is important. The idea that this was a workstation where it was always the same. Every time he wanted to communicate, he went to the same rig where the buttons were in the same place and and that helped in his motor planning. This was hard enough. And he would always say, if the target changes from day to day, that just makes it that much harder. So one of the things that was successful about this was the idea is that Abey had a workstation the same way I do, where my computer is. Everybody went to their desk. This was Abey's workstation. The ergonomics of it were set up just so that it matched him. Even here's more pictures of it. Even the stool, I put this picture in, this is Michelle's stool. Even this was important. I wanted to point out, you see how this has a round ring? I highly recommend the kind of stools that have this. There's some that have a little handle and you have to sort of figure out where it is. The idea that Michelle could just reach down anywhere and get it at just the right height. We also reupholstered it. It came with a vinyl top and it was a little too slippery, and we reupholstered it with cloth that made it added more friction for her. But all these ergonomic answers, the workstation and everything being in just the right place, gave it the best chance of succeeding. I had tried a few other access points that were failures. This is Izzy demonstrating one of them. Some of the, it's always, how can I put it? One of the things that isn't great about Abey's access point is he's standing, and that tires him out. He can only do it for so long before he's exhausted and needs to take a break. Everybody has said, well, if only he could do this while he was sitting. So we still, to this day, are looking at ways he could access his system from a seated position. If we could do that, we could extend his workday by quite a bit. It hasn't worked out so far. Here's one answer, which was to take the switches off the rig and put it on the lap tray of a wheelchair, the way Izzy is demoing. That did not work. We couldn't get it to work. Here's another idea I had, was to put the buttons on the floor, because I thought Abey can walk and can take small steps. Maybe he could walk to a button and step on it, and that would be better for his posture, kind of easier to handle. Abey never got this to work either. His legs are they change. I don't really know why, but what he can do with his legs changes sort of from day to day. And we never got this to work. We really did try. Here's another one of my favorite things. This is a chair. It's sort of a copy of the Rifton chair that he was using at school, but it's on these black things. I don't know if you can see them. These are linear bearings, very high quality linear bearings with no friction. And you could sit in this chair and just like with the slightest little push, it would slide down this track back and forth. And I thought maybe he could sit in this chair and have a have a harness that's strapped into it. And instead of walking towards something with his feet, one in front of the other, they could sidestep, one next to each other, one next to each other. This was a complete failure. He never had the patterning. The difference in what he had to do with his feet was beyond what he could do. And he just got frustrated with it. We tried for hours, over days. I love that chair. I worked a long time on it. These are linear bearings that are made for a sailboat. And I thought this could work. I really did. I thought, because it was so easy to move. and he never got it right. He just couldn't do it and we all just agreed to scrap this and go with what he could do, which was
So
walking.
Josh, I
Yes.
got a great question from Sophia about when did you transition from pictures to the letters that we see on the screen right now?
Okay, so good question. That's what I'm getting to next. And that is Us Abey 2, which is text-based, and that happened at 5 to 6 years old, right in there. We used the image-based system from 2 to 5, and we could see, I'm gonna change, let's see, can you see this? We started using the image-based system, but I put the alphabet up, and we could see that using these three switches, he could spell basic words, even as somebody, 4 or 5 years old. It was laborious, it was tedious, because we only had 3 switches, and it kind of took forever, and there was no place for, we had to write this down on a piece of paper as he spelled something. But Michelle could see that spelling with 3 switches was something he could do, and maybe we should look at the next step. And
Josh, how could he do that? Nasha just asked us, how could you tell he could spell those basic words?
it's with this, like, this is it right here. You could, using this button, and you remember I said how we could make a group of letters? Using this center button, he could advance M, N, O, P, Q, R, S till he got to the letter he wanted, and then hit the select button. And in this case, you had to write it down. You had to write M on a piece of paper, and then you said, "Okay, Abey, let's do the next letter." But he could eventually write Mom, and
So
it took
someone
forever.
else
It
at
wasn't.
this point. So because I know as it's advanced to the system he has now, as he hits the letter shows up on the computer screen. So at this
Yes.
early
So
stage, someone was writing the letter when he would select it.
yeah, we would just write it on a piece of paper with a Sharpie.
Uh-huh.
Um, that led to the next step was to take the image-based system. This is a picture of it here, and break it up. I added 3 buttons to make it 6 buttons. The whole idea was that with 25 letters, there are 26 letters to the alphabet. So if you pretend there are only 25 or you ignore a letter, with 5 buttons, you could, and 2 switch hits, you could now get to any letter in the alphabet much quicker. And it also has this screen here where you could keep track of what you're writing instead of somebody using a piece of paper. But you can see this distance here from this red button to this blue button is 44 inches. Like, it's big. It's still a very big thing. And he would walk a few steps towards each button. And let me just see where I am in this. I can skip all that. Why don't I just go and demo this for you?
Yeah. And I guess it's also a question of how did he actually know how to spell the basic words? Like, was this from seeing it? Was this that he just knew from recognizing them? So, like, when was that big
Yeah.
aha moment? Wow, he could spell.
I got to tell you, I don't know, but he knew how. I don't know how he picked it up. I really don't know. I know I had to go to school and learn how to spell. Like, when this all started, before we got to that thing with the text, Michelle was waiting. I was already programming it, but Michelle is sometimes a little impatient, and she had taken a FedEx shipping tube, the kind that are like triangular, and she had made it like a flip book with 6 flips, like with loose leaf rings, that sort of mimicked what the actual program did. And she was messing it with. We were upstate at our place up there, and we were watching TV, watching movies all day. And Michelle was working with Abey on this thing that was just cut out of cardboard and made out of paper. And Abey told us, "I'm tired of watching movies." And that's when we knew he somehow could spell well enough to get that message across.
Right.
I don't know how he learned it.
Even just from our experience together when Michelle and Josh were over, and we realized that Josie's point of access would not be Abey's point of access because she couldn't bear weight. But Michelle said, "So let's figure out what her point of access is." And she held her in front of her on the couch and asked Josie a series of questions, but first showing her that, okay, if you lean to the right, that's yes. If you lean to the left, that's no. And then Josie consistently was answering Michelle's questions by leaning. She said this could be her point of access. But then she showed her 2 letters, a J and a K, on both sides. And she said, lean to the first letter in your name. And Josie leaned to the J. So, which made us believe that, okay, which is when Abby then said, I'm, encouraged to see that Josie can read, because she was able to identify that letter. So that's a sign.
And
I
Josh,
mean, I think Amy,
Michelle just maybe sent a message to the panelists saying when he had a teacher 3 times a week, or at least I
yeah,
got it.
Gene.
So who
No,
is
I
this?
see that too. So obviously that had something to do with it. Um, Michelle's right. He had I think she was called a See It that came through early intervention. And we had, like I said, as he got older, I made the image rig so that it printed the name of, like, in big letters of the name of each photo at the bottom of it. I don't know. I don't know how he picked up spelling, but he knew he was way ahead of us. That's for sure. We were still using the image-based thing when we knew he could spell.
Right.
I'm going to share my screen. So
Sure. And I just want to say,
this,
so a takeaway for us is, use the words, whether or not we can tell if our children recognize the words, use the words. So now, since I met you all, I'm using closed caption on the TV, for if the chance that Josie
yeah,
can read these words. Mm-hmm.
I totally get that. I mean, this is kind of what I was just explaining. This is how he used the image-based system to choose yes or no and make the A. And this is what it looked like. And it wasn't really very good, but it led us to this thing here. And I'm going to demo this for you now. Okay. So what you're seeing now is the current version of Us Abey that he uses. It uses a 6-button switch array. Actually, let me just stop sharing. So this is it here. This is what it looks like. It's made out of sheet metal. This is a 28-inch version that's smaller. There's another one that's about twice the size that he started with that's 48 inches that has bigger buttons on it and more space between the buttons. It has let's see, it has a USB port on it, and it just plugs into a computer, and it works with our software. And I'm going to share my screen now. This is the software that runs. It runs on any Windows machine. And when you hit the red button, it's like pushing this thing here that says writing. I'm going to do it right now. And here's the basic concept. So you can see on this red button, it's A, B, C, D, and there's an E under there underneath the share screen control. When AB hits it once, these 5 letters repopulate over the buttons. So now that red button is spread out to A, B, C, D, E. And then if he hits this button, it prints the D, and it goes back to where we started. You hit the red button again, and then you hit the first button, and you can do it again, and you can hit the 4th button, and you've just written the word dad in just a few keystrokes. That is the system. That's what it is. It does a lot of other things, but that's the essence of it. That's how he writes. He walks up to one of these 6 buttons, pushes it with his chest, and this is how he writes. It does all kinds of other things. It's supposed to follow somebody, in an academic setting. So it does punctuation. You could put parentheses, question marks. You could write a period. You can make a space. It does anything you would do with a regular, computer keyboard. It does saving and editing. I'm going to change windows because it's hard to load. This is Us Abey with the blog post that he was just posted on the FOXG1 website. Abey edits all his own work. You go to this button and you do more, and you do move to line. And using these arrows with his chest, he can advance a line. He can advance 4 lines. He can decide I want to edit this one, and he can say edit this line, and he can move over, and just the way anybody does, it just takes him longer. But this is the system he uses to write everything. It does math. Let's go to that.
Yeah, to the FOXG1 parents out there, if you haven't read Abey's FOXG1 story that he wrote for our community, it's on our website under our news page. It's in our blog. Um, and separately, we'll bring up the conversation of Abey. What we're researching is at what time point does the FOXG1 gene actually stop doing its job? Because that's in Abey's blog post that he was, encouraged to have a diagnosis, but then learned that the FOXG1 gene stops doing its job by kindergarten. And we'll say we don't know that yet. So we'll continue
Yeah,
to research that, and that's the big question.
yeah.
Okay.
So here is the math version, which it has different variables and constants. So one of the things we would do is we would talk to his math teacher and his science teachers each year, and I would change what this is set up, I think, for geometry. So it has the x-intercept, the y-intercept. But as he advanced through the curriculum, I would change the variables so that he could write he could access them quicker. It also does, let's see, let me just put something up. It does one other thing I want to show you that's kind of cool, which is this grid math. So I was concerned that this, even the math module of this, but all the assistive technology, it always goes across in a line like you're writing a sentence. But that's not how you do more advanced math. It's hard to do. It's hard to multiply 2 3-digit numbers that way. You have to do it vertically. I came up with this idea for this grid math. Each one of these boxes is like, it's just imagine like a giant graph paper. This is not an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't calculate anything. It doesn't do anything for you, but it gives you the chance to write math vertically and then solve it yourself. And I'm going to switch back to the slideshow. This is what that looks like. So if you wanted to multiply 63 by 27, you could put it up here and you could draw lines and you could do more advanced math that no one could do horizontally, at least I couldn't. I know we're almost out of time. I'm going to just go quickly. This 28, we designed a smaller switch array that was 28 inches. This is the kind of plans that I send to a fabricator. It's made in sheet metal up in New Hampshire, and this is what comes. And I take this and I get it powder coated over in Brooklyn, and then I put all the parts in. Most of the other parts I get from AbleNet, they're just switches, wire, and there's a computer chip that goes inside. And here is Abey using the first rig. He looks like he's about 8 or 9 years old and writing, and there's Michelle. And at this point, there's nothing for the operator to do. Abey controls the whole thing, just like that. You can see Michelle returns him to midline. Now, it doesn't look like she's centered up on the rig here. I think that's just to shoot the video, but Abey doesn't seem to care. He's step by step. And every two trips to the switch array is another letter.
How is his vision? A parent is asking, does he have, I don't see him wearing glasses.
Yeah, he has glasses. He rips them off all the time. He doesn't really wear them consistently. He should have glasses. He can read like a book. It's really hard for him. You have to mask all the other lines so he reads one line at a time. It's very difficult with his movements to look at something consistently. He does, I think they call it keyholing, where he kind of looks out the side of his peripheral vision. He's better at it than I am, for sure. But with his peripheral vision, he sees everything.
Yeah. So I know we're
This
running
is a
out
nice.
of time, and before we go, I wanted to see if you have tips you can give to parents that have helped you along the way. I know some of the things I picked up just meeting you guys was for young children. Michelle said you focused on bearing weight all the time. She said we did sit-ups and bridge poses every day, a lot of therapy, and that really might have made the difference of Abey having this standing point of access. What
Yeah.
are some other? Mhm.
I mean, the thing is, that was right for AB. But the thing is to look for an access point. Like,
Right.
I don't know, I only really know AB, and I've met 3 other FOXG1 kids for an hour, you know? So I don't know how we would say, but the point is to look for an access point. Like, there must be something, find something that they can control. It doesn't need to be 6 switches. It could just be 2 switches. It could even just be 1 switch, you know, that like, but look for what they can do. Don't worry about what they can't do. Look for what they can do. Here's AB and Mahmood writing. I think this video is on our website. Um,
Yep.
Here's AB at a Zoom call using his rig, and we use the other screen for a Zoom call. I wanted to show this. This is a picture I took just a few days ago. I cut his desk in half. So this is the other 2 kids' desk, and I'm using now this base that goes up and down. And by getting the switch array up higher, AB's able to work much faster because he doesn't have to bend as low. So this is what I was saying about those ergonomics, that the ergonomics, as good as you can make them, really does make a difference. So this is a picture of his workstation at Columbia University. Every place where he has a class is an adjustable height desk with an auxiliary screen, his laptop, and one of these switch arrays. And I know we're running out of time. I wanted to show one other cool thing that AB came up with. AB kind of came up with this. AB started, he took his rig and he wrote us this list of colors using one of the worksheeting options on the software. And we kind of didn't know what was going on, but Michelle then took colored pencils and put these pencils in that shows the colors next to them. And then AB, using that grid math that I showed you a few slides ago, started writing out this grid work of numbers. And we realized that the numbers match these colors. And this was AB drawing a picture. And we kind of we didn't realize it at first. It was 2 sheets long. Michelle made a grid, used a piece of graph paper and the colors, and following the map of his numbers, made this was his sort of first picture. It's like a tree with us on a sunny day. And I thought this was kind of cool as another way of somebody who can't hold a pencil, or, you know, I'd like to develop this further so that the software was better, but I thought it was kind of cool.
That's
I have
amazing.
one other
Art.
I have one other picture here. This is the rig we used to take the SATs in high school. So we worked this out with the College Board so they would accept it. They wanted to have 2 units in case one broke, and the other unit is for the math part. He could use this rig to do like a piece of scratch paper and then give the answer on this rig. And
This is so incredible. I mean, it's really, I just know, speaking for myself and speaking to anyone who has seen the blog post with AB, is just, we are all just blown away at the potential of our children. And I know parents are going to have more questions, and we are very fortunate to have you in our community. And we will continue to do FOXG1 Parent Support Zooms. The next one we'll do as a Zoom, so more parents can have a conversation and talk about communication experiences, and just talk about our children, and have a more conversational Zoom next time. Parents do have questions about, so I know this isn't your job. This isn't your business. You guys created this for AB, which is just inspiring, incredible. You are so resourceful. We all wish we had a workshop in our house to create
yeah,
everything
I know.
for our children. So parents, one parent asked, can I purchase this device? So I'll leave that to you to
Well,
answer.
I think that here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my
Contact.
my email in the chat, stagehandjosh@gmail.com. So anybody can email me anytime. There was a time we thought that maybe this is something we would make. At the time, we didn't even know FOXG1 existed. We thought AB had cerebral palsy. There are lots of people with cerebral palsy who don't need this. They can use their hands. And it didn't seem like there was any kind of market for it. And we've all kind of moved on. So this whole thing is sort of new to us. Anybody who thinks this might work for their kid should maybe email us or email you or something, and it's something we can look into. It's not something we're set up for now, but I realize that it might be something that we could do, or we could help sort of put together. Some parts of it are easy. You know, writing the software is just me sitting at a desk, but making the sheet metal kind of involved is a little more involved in everything. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I do understand that some people might be interested in it, and I'm happy to think about it and work with the foundation or with you and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, we'll
Is
continue
that
to explore ideas and, thank you for offering your contact information to everybody to reach you directly. Anyone could reach me, Nicole, at foxg1research.org anytime to discuss ideas around this, discuss communications devices. Kate will be hosting more FOXG1 Parents Support Group Zooms, and we'll focus on communication devices. What's out there? What else is, on the horizon for communication devices? What could we share with the industry about what we need? I think this is pretty groundbreaking and needs to get out there. And I think the most important takeaway is what we're learning about what our children actually understand if given the right tools. So we are so grateful to have to know you, to that you're a part of our family, and to for our eyes to be open to this now. So it's really groundbreaking. And people here in the chat are saying thank you, and we will continue this conversation. So make sure that you get our communications, that you're in the FOXG1 Parents Connect Facebook group if you're on Facebook, and keep in touch with us. And Josh, thank you so much for this. Please thank Abey for his amazing blog post for our community, his FOXG1 story.
I will.
Just amazing. And, we are very happy to introduce Abey to more FOXG1 children, because in the blog post everyone will read is Abey's looking for FOXG1 friends. So we will set that up. And thank you, Kate.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. And until next time, thank you everybody for joining us, and keep an eye out for more.